What's up, everybody? A Sparrow with a Gun here from Sleepless Nights with another episode on Space Engineers. We are back on the Corvette build, and there's a few things going on this episode, but mainly, there's going to be some changes I'm going to try out on the bottom layer here. Now, I should note, I always make a backup save every episode, with a new version of the ship for any changes that were made in that episode, just in case everyone's just kind of like, no, what were you thinking? So, a couple of things I want to go over first. Let me go into Spectator here. So first off, we got the oxygen farms fixed. I think that was the thudding I was hearing before when I would change the pistons and things like that, and then try and move. I think it was these loose blocks bouncing around. That's the only thing I can think of, because before I noticed that, the landing gears never made any weird sounds. So beyond that, I don't really know what it would be doing. So then I also fixed the respawn issue by adding this guy. It is, let me see if I can pull it up. It is the medical panel for a small ship. I've had this in my arsenal for a while, but whenever I looked into stuff, there was other things like this one that actually supplied all of your stuff and whatnot, so I didn't use it, but this one actually does handle respawning. So I took out the big panel and put a couple small ones in here because we had to remove that small panel to put that in there, but it'll keep us being able to recharge, heal, and fill our tanks, and then also this can respawn us, and then this will be our cryo chamber, and we'll probably put like some medical readouts or something on that one. So that's done. So yeah, I think all of the functionality is here for now. The next step is going to be, because we have everything like ventilated now and all that kind of stuff, so it's just going to end up being detail stuff, I think, on the inside. On the inside, I think it's just detail work. Everything, I think, is where it's going to be and kind of functions mostly properly, I think. So now the biggest undertaking for the remainder of the build, because we have detail work we talked about. It'll probably take us an episode or two, maybe, depending on how much I cut out and how much I play around with it. Then we also have testing on atmosphere and stuff like that, and making sure that, you know, if you die, you can respawn. If you go to land on a ship, the thrusters will, not a ship, a planet, the thrusters will hold up and all that stuff. So I think the last big thing to tackle is basically the underbelly. The top part I think is good. Now the one thing, I think I added it in this time. I forgot to do it in the last episode. Let's get rid of some of this stuff, because I don't really need it. So we had something like these large twin blasters, right? We've had those before. I want to see if they're any different, the ones that I just added in. I don't think they are. I think they're just an updated version or something. But anyways, I think it's these that we already have in play. Wait, no, those are twin blasters. Well, they say twin, but they're actually a single barrel. Now, isn't that odd? I never noticed that before. They say twin and they're a single barrel. Anyways, I wanted to replace these if these weren't the ones, but I think they already are, because apparently those don't use ammo, they use energy, which I thought would be really, really handy if your missiles or your Gatling turrets or something run out, at least up towards your bridge. And it's ironic that they're close to the bridge, because I didn't intentionally mean to add them as a security measure for the bridge, but we've basically got 4 on each side surrounding the bridge, so if you ever ran out of ammo, I guess as long as your ship had power, you technically still could defend yourself. So that's kind of cool. I like that. So I guess we don't have to do anything to that. But the big thing is the underbelly now. That's really the big problem that I'm running into. So we basically have, I count and I hope I'm getting this right. I probably am getting stuff mixed up, but I think I've got about 5 options that I'd like to run through. 1, we leave it as is, and it basically, your missiles are protected, your landing gears are inset, the bay is protected, and the Gatling turrets aren't, but they have a frame around them. I am not particularly fond of this option. And oh yeah, I was testing the new performance warning system that the game implemented in the last update. Do not like it. Don't like it. I literally broke these 3 blocks and went to replace them, and I got this ship would not meet regulations or something. I couldn't place any blocks, even though it said I could place like another 9,000 or something. I couldn't place anything because everything would not meet regulations, whatever the heck that means. So I closed the world, reloaded it, went to the block limit, and was like, no, get that out of here. So, besides the fact that it didn't really improve anything for me, I mean, that's probably why my performance on this build is so bad, is because, like, according to the regulations, it wouldn't even let me place any more blocks. But, you know. Oh, there is one thing. There's one other thing that I meant to do. I've been told about this Mac cannon, which there's been multiples of, but apparently this newer mod, or more recent mod, is a 1x1 by a really long barrel, basically. Let's see. This one, what's the... Okay, I don't really know what the difference is. I'm seeing a different thumbnail, but they're basically looking identical, so I don't really know what the difference is in what these two do. But they're same size and same components. So one's a frigate and one's a destroyer cannon. I didn't actually know there was more than one, so I didn't really read on which was which. But since they're the same size, it really doesn't matter all that much, because all you'd have to do is replace it. But anyways, a lot of people were talking about putting this in the nose, which I actually really like the idea of now that I'm looking at it. I just didn't know there was one that would fit. So this is going to be a little interesting here, because I've got to actually go in here and make sure I've got enough room. So let's count this out. What do we got here? I think it's like 8, I want to say. I think it's like 8 blocks long. Or not. 12. So I need 12 blocks in space. I don't think I have that. Where is the actual nose? It's going to be right here, which I believe is the floor. Oh my gosh, the frame rate is so bad. They really need to fix this. My ship was running at 30 frames per second, or maybe a little less. Maybe like 25, somewhere in there. And they did this update on improving the graphics or something, and it's just broken my world. Like, now everything just runs so bad. I'm getting like 15, 10, stuff like this, and it's like, whatever you did, undo it. Or yeah, something. But fix it, because this is just terrible. I feel really bad for you guys. I know nobody's actually brought up the whole frame rate being atrocious thing. But I kind of feel bad because, you know, you guys are having to watch all this, and it's just, like, really, really bad performance-wise. So, I am aware of it, and I do apologize, but there's not a whole lot I can do until they actually get their butt in gear and fix it. That is pretty freaking cool, and I don't know how I managed to get 1 block away. That's actually pretty impressive to me. Where am I right now? Alright, there I am. Alright, so I need to remove you and go about there. And I'm going to use the destroyer one for now, but since I really have no idea what the difference is in these weapons, you guys will have to let me know which is superior in firepower, and we've got to connect this up now. Okay, so tell you what we're gonna do. let's just poke a hole here. I was gonna do a very convoluted thing, and I just kind of was like, that would be silly, don't do that. I was gonna go from both directions off of those two conveyors, and it was like, wait a minute, I don't need to do all that. I don't actually need to reseal that or whatever, but whatever. Alright, so we got a Mac cannon in the front barrel now. That is a great idea. Okay, now that that's settled, and we're going to test it at the end of the episode, don't you worry, never you mind. Yeah, I like that, that's really cool. And it's connected through the conveyor system, so we should be able to, like, reload it and fire it and stuff. It shouldn't be a problem. Alright, so now the elephant in the room is the underbelly. Now, right at the moment, here's the thing. I like the ratio of the top of the ship to the bottom of the ship. The top looks a bit beefier, the bottom looks a bit more streamlined, and I like that. I didn't want to make the bottom really bulky. Now, a lot of people have been saying just add a layer to the bottom. Effectively, we kind of already have because of the bulge in all the ridges. I wanted originally to have everything inset, but everybody was talking about protecting your weapons, which that was going to be my other thing. That is one of my options here, is to essentially just gut the ridges and go back to the inset where they're essentially unprotected, because I really just like that look better. I'm not a fan of having all these little bubbles on the bottom. I liked this idea over here, and then when you looked like this, it had like a flush bottom. Now, granted, we kind of screwed that up with the rover bay to begin with, and then it was like, well, we might as well cover up the weapons, but then the Gatling guns got in the way. If the Gatling guns weren't causing me problems, I would be fine. I really would. If the Gatling guns weren't being a pain in the butt, then I would probably just go with it and count it as done. I'm not a huge fan of this front one either because of how it kind of merged together, and I don't really have a lot of space on the left or the right to move it. So, now we come to option... Okay, so option 1 is leaving it as is. Option 2 is going backwards and leaving the landing gears inset, the weapons inset, and the bulge of the rover bay, and that's it. Option 3 is to add a layer, another row of ramps here, like these guys, to the edge in order to give us a little bit more room. Now, for me, this honestly doesn't do anything. The reason being, it doesn't help me with the spacing issues I'm having here. Because one of two things is going to happen. Either well, and let me clarify. Part of the reason I'm saying that is because I would want to add the extra layer if it let me go back to an inset on everything. I wouldn't really want to add a layer and then still have the ridge here that we've got going on. To me, it kind of defeats the purpose because I've already got one. I just can't cover up the Gatling guns properly. You know, 6 to 1, half a dozen. So, with that said, if I were to do a layer, I'd still have spacing issues where it's kind of one of those, if I lower the weapons, I'm also now back to one block of space. If I don't lower the weapons, then you can't do the inset really, because you still wouldn't have a way to cover it up, because the inset's going to cut the block. Okay, I'm not making any sense. The best way I can put it is if I add a layer, but then go back to the inset style, it negates the extra layer that you just added. It won't help you protect the weapons any. And if I protect the weapons by adding another layer, then I'm still going to have bulges on the bottom, and all I really needed to do was take care of this, the Gatling guns, and I wouldn't have even needed an extra layer. So to me, they're kind of, it kind of negates. It doesn't really do anything for me. Now, the one thing that I did think of, and I'm really not sure I want to do this, so what I'm going to end up doing is a half and half on this model. is adding 2 layers. If I add 2 layers, then I can negate 1 by doing an inset and still be 1 lower than I am, which will then kind of balance everything out. The only problem with that is it's going to make the underbelly much taller, and I'm not a fan, but it's enough of an interesting idea that I want to test it. So what I'm going to do, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a half and half, where the left side of the ship here is going to be a 2-layer thick thing. Now, the only problem with this is it's also going to bring the nose back a little bit. So let's actually do that. So we need, if we're going to do a 2-layer, I would need... And like I said, I've already done... actually, you know what? I'm going to pause it real quick, save this as a new file so that I can go right from here. Okay. Whew, I'm back. That only took me like an hour or so. So, yeah, I can't actually speak for how much longer this episode is going to go because I don't really have much left to work on until we find out what we wanted to do. Now, I will say that the profile that this adds on the bottom was not as noticeable as I expected it to be. I mean, it's obvious, you can see it, especially if you, like, float back over here. You can see it's a little bit bulkier on the bottom, but it's actually not as pronounced as I was expecting it to be. I really expected it to show up really bad and be like, wow, this thing is, you know, equal on the top and the bottom, but it actually isn't terrible. I've already said that I really preferred the left side where there's a lower profile, but I have to admit, I do like how the extra inset layer will help the look of it. So let's get to that part. So I've already basically cut out the holes, essentially, for where the different weapons and things would go. And apparently something of this I've messed up. One of these, something's going on here. I either did this one wrong or the other one's wrong. I think I did this one wrong. I moved it, but I actually made it bigger? Yeah. Because it's supposed to be like that size. And I didn't do it in blast door blocks. I probably need to. And some of these are moved around a little bit, like as the side encroached, I couldn't keep them in the same positioning, so they had to be moved, like the chain gun here. I did move it, and then ultimately I decided that if I were to do this, I'd have one missile launcher in the middle here, but I could put the bigger one there that we're probably going to fire less. So there's that option. I know what it was. Okay. I was going off of the shape of these doors. That's what it was. Because the inset was actually smaller than the door frame. I went around the inset frame. That's what happened. Okay. That was going to confuse me. That was... well, no, it did confuse me. But it was going to bother me. It was like, where did that come from? What happened? So now the question is, how do I want to line them up? I suppose I can pull it away from the wall. Would probably be a better... I did get the... Because this doesn't have a door, I think I got the, Nope, I did this one wrong too. Yep. I did this one wrong. Okay, well that's actually a good thing because it gives me a little more room then. Okay, so let's go ahead and fix that. Which, by the way, I think this has been my least favorite part of adding a layer is the ridge stuff. It's not that it's a terrible thing to mess with, it's just kind of irritating. I tell you what, we'll move it in on both sides. And does it need to... It does need to come up. Okay, so we need to come in from, like, here. Yeah, that's what it was. It's that I was building when the doors were still over top of them, and then I went in and deleted them later. So I wasn't looking at it from that angle. That's what confused me. Okay, so from that we should be able to put a corner there, put a corner there. That is connected. I'm getting better about making sure things are all connected up before I break stuff, which is great, because it saves me a whole lot of headache later, and I did that wrong. Still messing it up. Okay. I will get this. It will be right. It shall be done. Yeah, that's what it was. I wasn't looking at the actual inset frame. I was looking at the door frame I had built. Because, yeah, I was like, wait a minute, those are both missiles. They should be about the same size. What's going on here? And by the way, I remembered what was the biggest reason I didn't want to do a single layer. I actually misspoke before and said the wrong thing. The real reason was the pistons. Because as it stands right now, where these are positioned, they could go one block up, or 2 blocks above themselves. So like, for example, this one here. If I fully extend this, it's going to come up to this range right here, because it was just barely over the ridge. So that was the thing. If I left these in place and put a single layer to try and then do a door, these would no longer clear. So I would have to do 2 pistons. And 2 pistons on top of each other would extend this one's resting position to up here, which now you have 1 layer of block on the outside, and then you just lowered the weapons another layer so it doesn't do anything. That's what it was. I kind of remembered like halfway into what I was doing. Like while I was off camera just derping around building this stuff, it just kind of hit me. I was like, oh yeah, that's why I did that. I think we might do the same thing here. My reasoning for this is because if... Oh, I actually need to bring this out 1. There we go. My reasoning for that is that if I end up changing my mind and decide to stick with 2 missile launchers, I need to make sure this is within clearance. But this was pretty close to the edge. You can see this right here. So when we brought it in 2 more rows, it's bad. Like, you can see how far this gets covered up. Though, I was going off the wrong measurements, so this should be... It should only be about this wide? Or no, it'd be this... Yeah, see, total, the width is going to end up being like this. Let me get rid of that one. Total, it would still be, if I did 2 weapons, they'd have to stay right where they are, and they'd still be right on the edge. But because the weapons are in this 3-block section and this 3-block section, it would actually clear. So I could keep 2 weapons. I do think I might go with 1 though, just for symmetry and stuff. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about all that. Okay, so where else? I am moving this over 1. So I still need a block here. If I could ever get this to rotate right, I don't know. For a minute there, I was actually doing really good with rotation, and now I'm back to being very, very confused by it. Not confused by how it works, but confused on how to get it to work right. Haha. Have fun figuring that one out. Okay, so there's that, and we need to make sure, again, that most all of this is connected up before we break anything of the old version, so that everything stays where it's supposed to. So let's get rid of that stuff, and then let's break 1 and make sure it's connected, and then we'll start cleaning. Okay, so we should be good now. So yeah, I think I was really concerned about this because of the profile on the bottom. I really didn't want it to be any taller than it already was. But from what I'm seeing, I don't think it's actually a bad move to do. It didn't do terrible amounts of anything in having to like resize anything. Though if we do the insets, I could probably fit the two up here again. I don't know, the one I think might look a little bit better, actually, just having one in the center. It may even things up a little bit. There is one glaring problem with this, just like most everything else in my builds. Fixing one problem causes another. The airlock is going to be a huge problem. Because as you can see, positioning-wise, it's a mess. I'd have to move it 2 blocks over, which is not a terrible thing on the outside. It's really actually not a big deal on the outside. The problem lies within. On the inside here, we had all this going at a very steep slope, but it worked to the airlock elevator. So, height-wise, I would actually need to move it down to get it to line up right, and I need it to move closer, which is a problem. So then it was, okay, we'll just move the door. Oh yeah, and then I went through and put this airlock here, you know. So the airlock's going to be an issue for this. Not undoable, and actually we could change this a little bit too. Mainly, what I'm actually thinking, this is what I'm really thinking, to be, like, transparent and all that. Not like, I have no idea. I actually do have a couple ideas. One is, I forgot about these actual airlock door blocks. And I'm not really able to do a very good showcase of them because it's confined quarters. Come on. Stay somewhere. So like this. They're that... I don't know, what is it, 5x5, probably? It's the same as this hatch, it looks like, so it's about a 5x5 door. It's a little bit taller, though, unfortunately, than I was expecting. I think it's 1 block shy of the corridor height here, so I'd have a little bit of a height issue there. We'd probably end up having to rework this stuff. The entry, well, maybe not. I might just have to move it. What I'm thinking is this, this entry might just have to move flush with this wall, and that would give us like 4 block space out of the way. And then I wouldn't need this ramp here. Well, no, I actually still do, because that's to meet up with that, isn't it? Anyways, so we can work on that at any point, but my theory is I may do a more standard, like, put an airlock here, and then you walk through the corridor, and then there's like a extendable ladder with a doorway, you know, something a little bit different than this, but I may end up having to rework that, but overall I think this will work better for the ship as a whole, because everything will look uniform, even the rover bay will be inset. And I wouldn't actually have to move it anywhere as far as up or down or anything. It can stay right where it is. The other interesting aspect to this is I could leave the weapons. Here's an interesting debate for you guys to hash out in the comments for me and help me out a little bit. Is I could leave the weapons where they are and just move them. Like move them horizontally over to where they fit, but they're this high in terms of the altitude part, which may, I can't say for sure, but it might allow to put a thin kind of doorway in here, right? Like maybe even, my concern is the height again, is the height issue here, that I don't know if it'll clear when you have stuff that's a full one block thick, as opposed to something that's like the collision box is that way, but it's actually not going to clip it. Oh, that's an interesting idea. Well, again, that would only work for the missiles. I was thinking of the Do I still have it on a hotbar somewhere? I don't think I do. I was thinking of that door we used before. Oh, what was it called? MCM something. There we go. LE door. Something like this, where we could actually place it on the perimeter here? Like this kind of thing. Now, it's not letting me do it now. But you see my point, that because the inset is actually... Oh, I'm going to have the same problem. Never mind. It won't be able to extend. It's going to extend right into the inset height. Okay. So, I can't do that. So, I'm going to end up... Well, I can, but I can't, if that makes sense. I have two options here. One is the resting height is lowered because I'm going to stack two pistons. Like, there's going to be a piston under this one, and then they'll have twice the extension rate. But their resting height will be kind of where they are right now. Actually, no, it won't. It'll be right here on this block level. So they'll still be under the inset. Which could work in our favor. I'm just trying to make sure I did do that right? Yeah, okay, the difference is this is... They're at the same block height. Okay. My original theory, though, was I could put a doorway or something in between here, and you can keep the inset look, but then still protect them. But I think I'm going to end up having to do double pistons to get them to extend far enough for this to work. The other option that somebody had actually brought up to me, and it might work even better now that they're not level with the inset, is to basically put armor panels on them, which I know I have somewhere, like these, and basically cover them with panels so that when they retract, they're still protected a little bit. They have a little armor. But actually, this would work out better, because even with two pistons, they're going to be at this height. So if we did metal plates, it would actually just look like, kind of like that. That it'll just have... It's hard to explain, because it's not letting me build it, but you guys get the idea. It'll have like a metal plate underneath. I am going to have to convert these into blast blocks with the offsets, I think, in order for this to work. And actually, now that I'm looking at this, I could, since this never retracts, I could bring the ridge out like that. That's probably a good idea, too. Let's actually just go ahead and do that real quick. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go with this for the moment, and basically see how it goes, and see what you guys think, and if anybody mutinies over it. I know a couple people had been suggesting to do an extra layer anyway, but, you know, I kind of just went the step further by doing... another layer to prevent the piston issues or the height issues being a problem on a whole nother level. Actually, quite literally a whole nother level. So there's that. But overall, like I said, I really am surprised that it actually doesn't look as fat as I was thinking it was going to look. I was really afraid it was just going to get this really fat look and kind of be like, you know, the Star Destroyer that needs to lose some weight kind of thing. And I really didn't want to do that. I still, if we go with the, so this is kind of my current perspective with the weapons. I'm thinking these are going to get turned into blast blocks to account for the collision boxes. We're going to add another piston to extend them further, and then we're going to do an armor panel layer on top of it. And if that works, we can actually do that to these as well, and it should negate the problem we're having with covering them up. The other alternative I mentioned was basically to... Am I in spectator mode? Yes, there I am. Okay. The other option that I mentioned was essentially to reconfigure this setup to where there is a second piston right where that conveyor would be, and you'd bring the conveyors up into the floor a little bit. It wouldn't be noticeable because I would do it over here in this pocket where there's actually nothing there because I sealed it off. So you could do that too. That's another option if we want to keep this height. The problem is I don't think there's any benefit to it. If we kept this height, I think the collision boxes are still going to be a problem, and it's still not going to let me do like an airtight hangar door or something like that to protect them. So I don't really see the benefit in doing it that way when there's an option that lets us have our cake and eat it too, basically. They'll be protected with the armor panels when they're retracted, but they'll still all be inset when they're not. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. And at the moment, that's kind of my best option, I think. Now, again, the bigger issue is the airlock. We're going to have to do some serious reconfiguration for that to work, which might cause some ripple effects. So, I don't really know. But in the meantime, I think we're going to wrap things up here. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.